Food is the story of life. It begins before memory, before language, before anything we might call human. It starts with the quiet hunger of early creatures, wandering across ancient landscapes, guided only by instinct and curiosity. In this story, we find our origins. And in this story, we also find our future. Tonight, we walk across the vast timeline of nourishment. We explore how the things we eat have shaped our bodies, our landscapes, our cultures, and our imaginations. We travel from the first foraged berries on prehistoric plains to the engineered proteins and regenerative farms of the coming century. We step into kitchens lit by firelight and laboratories lit by cool blue LEDs. We move from the soil beneath our feet to the orbiting satellites that will soon guide the farming of entire continents. As you settle into this journey, allow yourself to soften a little. Take a slow breath. Notice the space around you. Let the mind grow quiet, spacious, and curious, the way a field opens to the sky at dawn. The story of food is not simply about survival. It is about connection. Every plant, every animal, every grain of soil is part of a relationship that stretches across time. We eat because the earth gives. We grow because we have learned to listen to the land. And we imagine the future because we carry an ancient memory of hunger, creativity, and resilience. In the next hours, we will trace how early humans learned to forage with skill and intuition. How the first seeds planted in fertile soil transformed the mind and built civilizations. We will explore the science of taste and why flavors shape emotion, memory, and culture. We will walk into the age of machines and global trade, where food became both abundant and fragile. We will follow the climate as it shifts, reshaping forests, oceans, and farms. And we will witness the innovations rising from labs, greenhouses, and regenerative fields as humanity seeks to feed a growing world without exhausting the planet. This is a story about soil. It is a story about water. It is a story about the delicate networks of life, the ingenuity of human minds, and the choices we face in the decades ahead. It is also a story about care. How we treat the earth, how we nourish one another, how we imagine a future where food is sustainable, ethical, and abundant. For now, breathe gently. Let the mind settle into stillness. Let curiosity guide you, as it guided the first people who picked up a root, a leaf, or a piece of fruit, and wondered what nourishment might be found inside. Our journey begins not with farms or factories or laboratories, but with a small group of early humans, waking beneath a pale sunrise, listening to the wind, reading the land, and searching for their first meal of the day. When you are ready, we step into the deep past, where the story of food truly begins. The first foods. Before agriculture, before settlements, before written history, there were landscapes shaped only by wind, seasons, and the quiet footsteps of early humans. These first communities lived in a world where food was not stored, harvested, or guaranteed. It was discovered. It was followed. It was read in the language of the land. And in that ancient relationship, the foundations of humanity were formed. Imagine the earth tens of thousands of years ago. Wide grasslands stretching into hazy horizons, forests dense with scent and sound, rivers carving their way through continents still unfamiliar to our species. Early humans moved through these places with a deep sensitivity, noticing the smallest details. A cluster of berries hidden beneath leaves, tracks pressed into soft soil, the rhythm of birdsong signaling ripening fruit. Even the behavior of insects told stories about what could be eaten, what could be trusted, and what should be avoided. Foraging was not random wandering. It was a trained, intuitive science of survival. With each generation, knowledge passed from one pair of hands to another. Plants that healed, plants that harmed, roots rich with slow grounding energy, nuts dense with fats that fueled long journeys, leaves that soothed the body, mushrooms that expanded the spectrum of human experience, sometimes in ways we still do not fully understand. Food guided migration. It shaped daily routines. It crafted the earliest forms of cooperation because searching for nourishment alone was difficult, and sharing it strengthened the entire group. Around small fires, early humans learned the art of patience, the meaning of generosity, and the value of connection. A small berry could be a lesson in trust. A shared meal could be a moment of safety in a dangerous world. Over time, human senses evolved not only to detect calories, but to appreciate flavor. Slight sweetness signaled ripe and nourishing fruit. Bitterness warned of toxins. Umami guided us toward proteins and essential nutrients. The body became a finely tuned instrument, capable of reading food with remarkable precision. Even now, long after supermarkets and packaged meals, those ancient signals still live within us. The first foods shaped our biology in ways we continuously rediscover through science. And as humans moved through forests and savannas, they carried more than hunger. They carried imagination. With each discovery came curiosity. Why this berry grows near that tree? Why some plants thrive after fire or flood? Why certain animals migrate in predictable patterns? Early humans observed the world with a combination of necessity and awe. In those observations, they began forming the first theories about nature, the first philosophies about life. Sometimes wanderers stopped in a place not because it was beautiful, but because it was generous. A valley rich with tubers, a shoreline full of shellfish, a grove of fruit trees heavy with sweetness. In these moments, humans discovered something new. They realized that landscapes could teach them, feed them, and shape their stories. These places became the first temporary homes, early whispers of settlement long before the idea of farming existed. If you take a slow breath now, you might feel that ancient rhythm echoing subtly in your own body. The simple act of noticing your surroundings, the quiet of the room, the gentle pause between thoughts, mirrors the awareness early humans relied upon. They were present, deeply present, and it was this presence that kept them alive. As millennia passed, their knowledge expanded. They learned which animals followed certain seasonal cycles. They tracked the bloom of flowers that signaled where future fruits would appear. They discovered that fire could transform food, making it safer, more digestible, and more flavorful. Fire was not just warmth. It was chemistry, biology, and culture woven together. It unlocked energy that fueled the growth of the human brain, leading to new forms of thinking, new stories told beside the flames, new ways of understanding the world. With greater cognition came deeper memory. Humans began to carry not only immediate survival knowledge, but long-term patterns. They knew when certain plants reappeared each year. They recognized how soil changed after storms. They learned that some seeds sprouted when dropped accidentally, creating small clusters of plants near campsites. These quiet observations were the seeds of an idea that would eventually revolutionize the world. For now, though, the earth remained wild. Food remained a gift, discovered with each sunrise. And people lived in intimate collaboration with the land. They did not control it. They listened to it. They adapted to it. And in doing so, they developed a relationship with nature that modern science still seeks to fully understand. These early humans did not know it, but their footsteps were guiding history toward a moment that would transform not just diets, but the very structure of society, identity, and human consciousness. It was the moment when food would no longer be simply found, but grown. A moment when the wild world would be invited into partnership with the human mind. As this chapter closes, allow your breath to soften. Let the transition feel gentle. Imagine standing at the edge of a fertile valley with ancient seeds scattered in the wind. Something new is about to take root, something that will reshape everything. We now step into the first great turning point in the history of food, the beginning of agriculture, the birth of civilization, the agricultural revolution. The shift from foraging to farming was not sudden. It unfolded slowly, almost imperceptibly, over thousands of years. Yet its consequences reshaped every dimension of human existence. With the planting of seeds, humanity crossed a threshold. The world changed, and so did we. Picture an early human community returning to a familiar valley after months of migration. They noticed something unusual. Plants they had eaten and discarded the previous year now grow in small clusters. Seeds dropped accidentally have become sprouts. Roots left in the earth have multiplied. Fruit trees disturbed by human hands seem to thrive more vigorously than those untouched. For the first time, people begin to realize that the land responds to them. At first, the idea is simple. If certain seeds fall and grow, perhaps placing them intentionally might yield more food. There is no understanding of genetics, soil chemistry, or pollination. There is only observation and curiosity. So someone, somewhere, presses a seed into the soil. The gesture is quiet and ordinary, but the world shifts beneath it. At first, farming is supplemental. People still forage, still hunt, still follow migratory patterns, but the experiments continue. Seeds are saved, soil is prepared, water is directed. Slowly, humans begin shaping the land not only to survive, but to thrive. Then the great transformation begins. Year after year, harvest after harvest, early farmers learn the rhythms of the earth. They learn the language of seasons, the temperament of rainfall, the behaviors of plants. Villages form near fertile land. People stay longer. Children grow up knowing a single horizon instead of many. Tools become more refined. Ceremonies appear around planting and harvest, connecting food to spirituality, gratitude, and identity. Agriculture turns time itself into something new. Instead of moving with the seasons, humans begin planning for the future. They imagine months ahead. They cultivate patience. They learn the concept of investment that effort today yields nourishment tomorrow. This new mindset alters the architecture of human consciousness. Farming reshapes the brain as much as the environment. With fields producing more than a family can eat, surplus becomes possible. And surplus changes everything. Surplus means some people can focus on tasks other than gathering food. Pottery emerges, crafted to store grain. Weaving becomes essential, protecting harvests and shaping clothing. Art flourishes on cave walls and clay vessels. Storytelling deepens. Specialized roles appear: toolmakers, builders, healers, early scientists who study the patterns of stars to predict seasons. Agriculture births culture. With settlement comes population growth. Villages become towns. Towns become cities. The first civilizations rise along rivers where soils are rich and floods renew the land, the Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus, the Yellow River. These places become engines of innovation, but also pressure points on the natural world. Food becomes power. Grain becomes currency. Control over irrigation becomes control over communities. Hierarchies form. Governments emerge. Food, once a shared discovery, becomes a managed resource. And yet, for all its complexity, something simple remains. Humans are still in relationship with the land. They touch soil. They observe rain. They place seeds with intention. Their hands remain connected to the cycles of nature. But farming is also fragile. A single drought can devastate a settlement. A swarm of insects can erase a season of labor. As cities grow, forests are cleared for farmland. Soils deplete. Rivers shift. The balance between human need and ecological limits becomes increasingly delicate. Still, agriculture pushes forward. Humans breed plants intentionally, choosing seeds from the strongest crops. Wheat, barley, rice, maize, potatoes each becomes a symbol of human partnership with nature. Over generations, plants transform. So do we. Cooking evolves too. Grain becomes bread. Milk becomes cheese. Fire becomes an alchemical tool for unlocking flavor, safety, and nourishment. Meals become social rituals, binding families and communities together. The agricultural revolution is not a single event, but a profound unfolding, a new way of seeing the world. It brings stability, creativity, structure, and growth. But it also introduces challenges that will echo through history. Dependence on a few staple crops, vulnerability to climate shifts, social inequality, and the reshaping of vast ecosystems. Even now, if you take a slow breath, you may sense the duality within this transformation, the beauty of cultivating life, and the responsibility it demands. Farming teaches patience. It teaches care. It teaches that every action ripples outward, affecting soil, water, plants, animals, and future generations. By the end of this chapter in human history, we find ourselves rooted in place, looking out across fields shaped by human intention. And with that rooting comes reflection. Humans begin asking deeper questions. Why do certain foods bring comfort? Why does flavor evoke memory? Why does the experience of tasting something familiar feel like returning home? These questions lead us forward toward another layer of the story, a story inside the mind itself. Take a gentle breath, feeling the continuity between body and earth. Our next step moves from fields and farms into the intimate landscape of the senses. We now explore the science of taste and how the flavors of food are woven into memory, emotion, and the very essence of being human. Nurture the science of taste. Taste is one of the oldest languages the human body speaks. Long before writing, long before complex speech, even before we were fully human, taste guided us. It warned, invited, comforted, and connected. It shaped how we survived, how we remembered, and how we understood the world. When you taste something, you are engaging with a biological system millions of years old. Your tongue, your nose, your brain, your memories, your emotions, all of them participate in the act. It is not simply a chemical process. It is an experience that binds body and mind, past and present. Imagine the first moment an early human tasted a ripe fruit bursting with sweetness. That sweetness signaled energy, life, and safety. A bitter leaf, on the other hand, warned of toxins or plants that required careful preparation. Sourness hinted at fermentation, freshness, or potential spoilage. Saltiness revealed minerals essential to survival. And umami, the deep, savory quality, pointed toward protein and nourishment that could strengthen the body for long journeys. Every flavor became a message. Inside your mouth are thousands of taste receptors, but most of what you perceive as flavor actually comes from your sense of smell. When food enters the mouth, volatile compounds rise and interact with olfactory receptors high in the nasal cavity. This subtle exchange creates the vivid tapestry of taste, the soft sweetness of fruit, the earthy depth of mushrooms, the warm comfort of cooked grains, the aromatic complexity of herbs and spices. But taste is not only sensory, it is deeply emotional. The brain regions responsible for processing flavor overlap with the centers for memory and emotion. This is why a single bite can carry you back decades. A childhood soup, a pastry from a street market, the scent of bread from a bakery at dawn. These memories are encoded not just intellectually, but chemically within the brain's emotional pathways. The taste of something familiar becomes a bridge to another time, another place, another version of yourself. Taste also shapes culture. The foods people call comforting, celebratory, or sacred are not just recipes. They are inheritances. They carry stories of ancestors, migrations, struggles, and celebrations. The spices used in one region tell a history of trade routes. The staple grain of another region reveals the climate that shaped its civilization. Food traditions evolve through necessity, creativity, and the subtle influence of the environment. Consider how spices transformed global history. A pinch of cinnamon, a handful of peppercorns, a leaf of basil small, fragrant, seemingly simple. And yet they moved empires. They shaped trade networks. They sparked exploration. They linked cultures that had never before met. Flavor became a catalyst for global connection. Taste is also shaped by the brain's reward system. When you eat something rich in energy, the brain releases dopamine, reinforcing the behavior. This ancient mechanism helped early humans survive times of scarcity, but in the modern world of abundance, it shapes cravings and decisions in ways we are still learning to navigate. And even more remarkable, taste evolves. Children are born with an innate attraction to sweetness and aversion to bitterness. Over time, as the brain matures and experiences accumulate, tastes widen and deepen. Foods once rejected become comforting. Flavors once intimidating become intriguing. This evolution mirrors the human journey of learning, adapting, and expanding beyond instinct. There is something almost poetic in the fact that the act of tasting so small, so ordinary, is actually a symphony of biology, memory, and emotion. It connects you to ancestors who tasted similar flavors in distant eras. It ties you to communities that have shaped foods with patience and creativity. It anchors you to the present moment, reminding you that nourishment is both a physical and emotional experience. Take a slow breath now, noticing the way your attention gently settles. Taste, after all, is a mindfulness practice written into the body. It invites presence. It encourages awareness. It teaches us to savor the moment. But even as humans celebrated flavor, ritual, and nourishment, a profound shift was unfolding. As populations grew, cities formed, and the demands of civilizations expanded. Food needed to be produced in greater quantities and moved across greater distances. This next chapter carries us into the age of machines, engines, factories, and global networks. An era where abundance became possible, but at a cost the world is still reckoning with. With a calm breath, we transition into the story of mass production, industrial power, and the global food system that now feeds billions. We now enter the era of industrialization and globalization. Industrialization and globalization. The arrival of industrialization reshaped the story of food as profoundly as the first seeds pressed into soil thousands of years earlier. Where agriculture rooted humans to the land, industry lifted them into a new era, defined by machines, engines, and the accelerating pace of progress. Food, once local and seasonal, began to flow across vast distances, carried by steamships, trains, and later by planes and refrigerated trucks. The world grew interconnected, and with that connection came abundance, innovation, and challenges that still shape our lives today. Imagine the early 19th century. Fields tended by hand for generations suddenly meet mechanical plows pulled by iron machines. Harvests that once required entire communities can now be completed by a few people in a fraction of the time. Grain mills hum with relentless precision. Canning, drying, and preserving extend the lifespan of foods beyond anything earlier civilizations could achieve. These innovations bring relief to populations vulnerable to famine, but they also begin a profound transformation in how people think about nourishment. For the first time, food is no longer tied to the rhythms of local agriculture. It becomes a product, measurable, transportable, predictable. In cities growing faster than ever before, this shift is essential. Millions of people now depend on complex supply chains. Refrigeration changes the meaning of freshness. Packaged foods emerge as symbols of modernity, convenience, and efficiency. With industrialization, yield becomes the measure of success. How much can the land produce? How quickly? How consistently? Farmers adopt synthetic fertilizers to replenish depleted soils. Pesticides protect crops from insects and disease. Irrigation systems expand water into places once considered unfarmable. The goal becomes quantity, scale, and reliability, feeding growing populations with staggering efficiency. Yet efficiency comes with a quiet cost. With the rise of monocultures, large fields planted with a single crop, ecosystems lose diversity. Soil, once rich with microorganisms and organic matter, begins to thin under repeated use. Rivers are diverted, wetlands drained, forests cleared. Food grows plentiful, but landscapes grow fragile. The balance that defined humanity's relationship with the land becomes strained. Industrialization also changes the experience of eating. Traditional meals, often shaped by local ingredients and slow preparation, meet the speed of modern life. Processed foods emerge, engineered for shelf life, uniformity, and taste that appeals universally. Salt, sugar, and fat become tools of design, shaping cravings and habits in ways the brain's ancient reward systems struggle to interpret in a world of abundance. Globalization accelerates these changes even more. A fruit that once grew only in a single region can now be found on the opposite side of the planet year-round. Trade routes connect farmers, manufacturers, and consumers across continents. Cuisine becomes a global tapestry, allowing people to experience flavors from places they may never see in person. This interconnectedness enriches culture, expands possibility, and fuels creativity. It also creates vulnerability. A drought in one region can affect food prices across multiple continents. A disease affecting a single crop variety can ripple through global markets. Corporate agriculture rises, bringing both innovation and complexity. Large-scale operations produce food with extraordinary efficiency, but smaller farmers often struggle to compete traditions fade, and economic power concentrates in fewer hands. Food becomes intertwined with politics, economics, and international relations. And yet, within this vast global system, remarkable things happen too. Science advances. Nutrition becomes a field of study. We gain deeper understanding of vitamins, minerals, and the biochemical foundations of health. Public food safety laws emerge. Innovations like pasteurization, refrigeration, and controlled atmosphere storage save lives and reduce spoilage. For the first time in human history, enormous populations avoid famine, not by chance, but by design. Still, the industrial and global age of food introduces new questions. How much can the earth sustain? What happens when efficiency surpasses ecological balance? And how do we create a future where abundance does not come at the expense of the planet? Take a gentle breath. Feel the enormity of these changes, how they lifted societies, expanded possibilities, and quietly placed new pressures on the natural world. The story of food in the industrial era is one of progress, but also one of reckoning. Because now, in the 21st century, a force larger than technology is reshaping every crop, every ocean, and every living system that feeds humanity. A force that no single invention or industry can ignore. As one chapter of human history accelerates, another begins to unfold, shaped not by machines, but by the warming of the atmosphere, the shifting of seasons, and the vulnerability of ecosystems pushed beyond their limits. With a calm exhale, we now step into one of the defining challenges of our time: the story of climate change and food. Climate change and food. Climate has always shaped the food we grow, the animals we raise, and the ecosystems that sustain us. But today, that ancient balance is shifting faster than at any point in human history. As the planet warms, every field, forest, and ocean feels the change, and with it, the future of food enters a moment of profound uncertainty and transformation. Imagine standing in a field at dawn. The air is warmer than it should be for this time of year. The soil beneath your feet holds less moisture than it did just a decade ago. The plants, though still alive, show subtle signs of stress, a slight dullness in their leaves, a slower growth rate, a vulnerability that was once rare. What you are witnessing is not a single event, but the cumulative effect of rising temperatures, shifting rainfall patterns, and the gradual reshaping of the seasons. Climate change alters the most fundamental ingredients of agriculture: temperature, water, soil, and the timing of growth. Crops that once flourished in predictable seasons now face extremes. Heat waves arrive earlier, cold snaps strike unpredictably, rain falls in torrents rather than gentle rhythms. In some places, drought lasts months longer than before. In others, floods erase entire harvests overnight. Wheat fields in one region may wither from heat stress, while rice paddies in another suffer from saltwater intrusion. As rising seas infiltrate coastal soils, corn, a staple for billions, becomes increasingly sensitive to temperature spikes during critical growth stages. Coffee plants retreat to higher elevations where cooler air still lingers. Wine grapes, deeply attuned to climate, shift regions entirely. With each degree of warming, these changes intensify. Oceans, too, are transforming. Warmer waters disrupt fish migration. Coral reefs, nurseries for a quarter of marine life, bleach and decline. Fisheries that once fed communities for generations now struggle with reduced populations, unpredictable breeding cycles, and shifting species distributions. Coastal communities watch as the familiar rhythms of tides, seasons, and harvests no longer align with memory or tradition. Climate change also amplifies pests and diseases. Warmer temperatures allow insects to expand their range, reaching crops that were once protected by colder climates. Fungal diseases flourish in humid, warming environments. This means farmers must adapt constantly, navigating challenges their ancestors never faced at such speed or scale. Even livestock are affected. Heat reduces fertility in animals, lowers milk production, and increases vulnerability to illness. Pastures dry out. Water sources shrink. The energy required to sustain large herds grows heavier, more complicated, and more uncertain. And yet, the story is not only one of vulnerability. It is also a story of adaptation, resilience, and reinvention. Communities around the world are experimenting with new crop varieties designed to withstand heat and drought. Agroforestry systems integrate trees with crops to create microclimates that protect soil and retain water. Farmers shift planting schedules to mirror new seasonal patterns. Scientists develop climate-resilient seeds using advanced breeding techniques and biotechnology. Satellites and sensors collect real-time data, helping farmers respond to changing conditions with greater precision. Indigenous communities, long attuned to ecological cycles, offer knowledge that becomes increasingly valuable. They understand how to work with the land rather than against it, how to observe subtle shifts in nature, and how to adapt practices honed over centuries of relationship with place. But the larger truth remains. The climate we once depended on is becoming unfamiliar. And within this uncertainty lies a fundamental question about the future of food. How do we nourish billions of people responsibly on a planet undergoing such rapid transformation? Take a slow breath. Feel the weight of this moment, but also the possibility within it. Humanity has faced environmental challenges before, though never at this scale. And yet, our capacity to innovate, to learn, to adapt, and to care remains one of our greatest strengths. Because even as climate change reshapes the surface of the Earth, another story waits beneath our feet. A quieter, older story. One that reveals the true foundation of all food systems. The living networks of soil, the flow of water, and the intricate web of biodiversity that makes life possible. With a gentle exhale, we now move downward into the hidden world that sustains every harvest, every ecosystem, and every human life. We enter the story of soil, water, and biodiversity. Soil, water, and biodiversity. Beneath every meal, beneath every field, beneath every civilization that has ever risen or fallen, there lies a world we seldom see but depend on entirely. Soil, water, and biodiversity are the quiet architects of life on Earth. They shape the flavor of food, the health of ecosystems, the stability of climates, and the resilience of species, including our own. To understand the future of food, we must begin here, in the hidden foundation beneath our feet. Imagine crouching down at the edge of a field. Scoop a handful of dark, rich soil into your palm. It looks simple, almost ordinary. But within that small handful, there is an entire universe. Billions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, archaea, interacting in delicate, intricate patterns. Threads of mycelium, weaving nutrients from one plant to another. Tiny insects engineering tunnels that allow water and air to move through the earth. Minerals formed millions of years ago, breaking down in slow cycles of renewal. Soil is alive, and this living system is what turns seeds into nourishment. Microbes unlock nutrients for plants. Earthworms create channels that help roots breathe. Fungi form symbiotic networks, transporting phosphorus, nitrogen, and water between trees and crops. When soil thrives, landscapes thrive. When soil collapses, civilizations wither. History offers many examples. Ancient Mesopotamia once flourished with abundant grain harvests, but salinization from irrigation slowly degraded the land. The Mayans farmed lush forests until drought and deforestation stressed their soil beyond recovery. The American Dust Bowl in the 1930s revealed how vulnerable plowed, exposed earth could become when winds carried away the very foundation of agriculture. Soil is resilient, but it is not infinite. It needs care, diversity, and balance. Water is the second pillar of this hidden foundation. It sustains every crop, nourishes every animal, and forms the circulatory system of the earth. Rivers carve landscapes, feed wetlands, and support countless species. Rainfall patterns shape entire food cultures, from rice terraces in Southeast Asia to wheat fields in Europe to millet fields in West Africa. But water, like soil, is under strain. Aquifers, natural underground reservoirs, are being drained faster than they can refill. Rivers once abundant are reduced to narrow channels. Lakes shrink, glaciers retreat, and seasonal rains grow unpredictable. Agriculture consumes roughly 70% of fresh water used by humanity, making it both a lifeline and a responsibility. A world with unstable water is a world with unstable food. Then there is biodiversity, the third and perhaps most profound foundation of all. Every species, from the smallest microbe to the largest predator, plays a role in the Earth's systems. Pollinators like bees and butterflies fertilize crops. Birds control pests. Wolves shape the behavior of herbivores, indirectly protecting vegetation. Forests regulate rainfall. Wetlands filter water. Coral reefs support fish populations. The interconnectedness of life is not metaphor. It is mathematics. It is ecology. It is the quiet, exquisite logic of nature itself. But biodiversity is declining at an unprecedented rate. Habitat loss, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation all contribute. As species vanish, ecosystems lose their resilience. The web weakens. The ability of landscapes to recover from stress diminishes, and with it, the security of our food systems. Yet, despite the challenges beneath the surface, the story is not one of despair. It is a call to rebuild our relationship with the living world. Around the globe, farmers, ecologists, and communities are learning to restore soil through regenerative practices. Cover crops protect and enrich the earth. Compost returns nutrients to the land. Reduced tilling preserves microbial life. Agroforestry integrates trees with crops, strengthening biodiversity. Wetlands are being restored to purify water and buffer floods. Rivers are protected through sustainable management. Pollinator habitats are being reintroduced in fields and urban spaces. Nature remembers how to heal when given the chance. Take a quiet breath. Notice the simplicity of this truth. The foundations of life are not complex machines or futuristic inventions. They are ancient, living systems that flourish through balance, diversity, and care. With this understanding, we begin to see the path forward, a future in which food systems do not fight against nature, but collaborate with it. A future built not on extraction, but on regeneration. And so, with the ground beneath us alive and understood, we now move into the next chapter of this story, one that explores how humanity can restore harmony with the land, healing what has been damaged and cultivating what can thrive. With a gentle exhale, we enter the world of sustainable farming, where innovation and tradition come together to nurture the earth. We now step into the landscape of regenerative agriculture and ecological balance. Sustainable farming. Sustainable farming begins with a simple, profound realization. The land is not a resource to be used. It is a living partner, a companion, a system of ancient intelligence woven through soil, water, roots, and the quiet movement of life. When we farm in harmony with this intelligence, food becomes more than a product. It becomes a relationship resilient, regenerative, and deeply connected to the Earth's rhythms. For much of recent history, agriculture has been built on the idea of control, clearing forests, tilling soil, removing competing species, adding chemical fertilizers to accelerate growth. These methods produced abundance, but often at the cost of soil health, water stability, and biodiversity. Sustainable farming offers a different vision, one that works with natural systems rather than against them. Imagine standing in a field where the soil is soft, dark, and rich with life. Cover crops grow between the rows: clover, radish, oats protecting the land from erosion and feeding microbes beneath the surface. Birds move overhead, drawn by the diversity of insects. Bees hum through flowering borders. Trees grow along the edges, their roots stabilizing soil and their leaves creating shade that cools the microclimate. This is not just a farm. It is an ecosystem. Regenerative agriculture, one of the most transformative approaches, begins by asking a simple question. How do we give back more than we take? Farmers practicing regeneration focus on 5 principles: keeping soil covered, minimizing disturbance, maintaining living roots in the ground, integrating livestock responsibly, and embracing biodiversity. These practices rebuild soil organic matter, restore water cycles, and increase resilience to drought and extreme weather. They also deepen the nutritional quality of food, because healthy soil creates healthy plants. Agroforestry blends trees with crops and livestock, creating layers of life that mimic natural forests. In these systems, trees provide shade, wind protection, and nutrient cycling. Their roots hold water and stabilize soil. Their fruit and leaves feed wildlife, livestock, and people. Instead of competing, the elements cooperate. Permaculture takes this even further, drawing inspiration directly from nature. It designs farming systems that require minimal input and yield maximum harmony. Swales collect rainwater on slopes. Plants are arranged to support one another, nitrogen-fixing species near nutrient-hungry crops. Tall trees protecting delicate herbs. Ground cover plants preventing erosion. Permaculture teaches that a farm can be a self-sustaining organism rather than a production line. Indigenous knowledge, too, offers wisdom essential for the future. Long before modern science, cultures around the world understood the importance of balance. They practiced rotational harvesting, respected seasonal cycles, and cultivated diversity. Many indigenous farming systems, such as the 3 sisters of maize, beans, and squash, embody elegant ecological logic. Each plant supports the others. Corn provides structure. Beans fix nitrogen. Squash shades the soil. Together, they nourish land and people. Sustainable farming also includes the thoughtful use of livestock. When grazed rotationally, animals become partners in regeneration. Their hooves aerate soil. Their manure fertilizes it. Their movement mimics the ancient migrations that shaped grasslands for millennia. Trailed responsibly, grazing restores prairies rather than degrading them. Around the world, communities are rediscovering these principles. Small farms are returning to heirloom varieties that thrive without excessive inputs. Urban gardens are transforming rooftops, balconies, and abandoned lots into green havens. Farmers' markets reconnect people with the seasons. Consumers choose foods grown ethically, supporting systems that honor both land and labor. Even restaurants and chefs are becoming storytellers of sustainability, crafting menus that reflect ecological awareness. This movement is not nostalgic. It is visionary. It recognizes that future food systems must be adaptable, resilient, and rooted in ecological intelligence. That innovation does not only come from laboratories, but from the soil itself. Take a moment to breathe, feeling the quiet harmony of this landscape. Sustainable farming is not just a technique. It is a mindset, one that respects cycles, values diversity, and embraces care. And yet, as powerful as regenerative practices are, they are only part of what the future demands. With billions of people to feed, and with climate and ecosystems under pressure, humanity must explore new technologies, new methods, and new forms of creativity that expand what's possible. As this chapter gently settles, imagine sunlight moving across fields shaped by both tradition and innovation. This is where the old world meets the new, where ancient wisdom stands beside futuristic thinking. Now, with a calm breath, we step into the next frontier, a world of vertical farms, hydroponic systems, data-driven fields, and technologies that may redefine what farming can be. We now enter the era of technological innovation in agriculture. Technological innovation. In the story of food, technology has always been a companion. Fire was a technology. The first stone tools were technologies. Irrigation channels carved by ancient hands were early engineering miracles that reshaped landscapes and nourished civilizations. But today, we stand at the edge of a new era, one defined not by simple tools, but by systems that merge biology, engineering, data, and imagination. This is the moment when fields meet algorithms, when greenhouses become intelligent ecosystems, when crops grow not only in soil, but in air, in water, and in carefully orchestrated environments illuminated by soft blue and magenta light. Imagine walking into a modern vertical farm. You step through the door, and instead of open sky, you find towering shelves of plants rising several stories high. Rows of leafy greens glow under LED lights, tuned to the exact wavelengths that maximize photosynthesis. Nutrient-rich water flows through hydroponic channels. Sensors monitor humidity, temperature, nutrient concentrations, and even the subtle electrical signals plants emit as they grow. Robots glide quietly between aisles, harvesting produce with astonishing precision. This is agriculture untethered from geography. It can exist in a warehouse in Tokyo, a converted factory in Detroit, a skyscraper in Singapore, or an underground bunker in London. Vertical farming reduces the need for land, cuts water use by up to 90%, eliminates pesticides, and produces food year-round, regardless of climate. It is a glimpse of a future where cities feed themselves, where local produce grows meters rather than miles from the dinner table. Hydroponics, aeroponics, and aquaponics are at the heart of these innovations. In hydroponics, plants grow in water enriched with dissolved nutrients. Their roots dangle freely, absorbing exactly what they need, no more, no less. This system delivers consistency, speed, and purity. Aeroponics takes the idea further. Plants are suspended in air, their roots misted with nutrient solutions. This method uses even less water and promotes rapid growth. NASA studies aeroponic systems for potential use in space travel and extraterrestrial agriculture. Aquaponics marries ecology with engineering, combining fish tanks with hydroponic beds. Fish produce waste. Bacteria convert that waste into nutrients. Plants absorb those nutrients. Cleaned water returns to the fish. It is a closed-loop system, mirroring nature's cycles, elegant, efficient, and sustainable. But technological innovation extends far beyond controlled environment farming. Precision agriculture uses satellite imagery, drones, soil sensors, and machine learning to treat every section of a field according to its unique needs. Instead of applying uniform irrigation or fertilizer, farmers use real-time data to deliver precise amounts exactly where required. This reduces waste, protects soil, and increases yields with remarkable efficiency. Self-driving tractors navigate fields with centimeter-level accuracy. AI systems predict pest outbreaks before they happen. Weather models forecast microclimate shifts. Everything becomes interconnected, responsive, and optimized. Then there are the breakthroughs in biotechnology. Through advanced breeding and genetic engineering, scientists develop crops that can withstand drought, heat, salinity, and disease. Some crops are engineered to produce higher nutrient densities, helping combat malnutrition in regions with limited food diversity. Others are designed to require fewer inputs, reducing pressure on ecosystems. Gene editing tools like CRISPR allow precise, targeted changes, accelerating what once took centuries of selective breeding. These tools raise ethical questions, but they also hold potential to create crops resilient enough to withstand the climate challenge decades ahead. Synthetic biology pushes even further, exploring ways to design microorganisms that produce flavor compounds, vitamins, enzymes, or even entirely new food structures. Fermentation technologies make dairy proteins without cows, eggs without chickens, and fats without animals or palm oil plantations. The food labs of today are experimenting with possibilities that will shape tomorrow's kitchens. Still, for all its promise, technology is not a solution by itself. It is a tool, powerful and dynamic, but requiring wisdom, regulation, and respect for ecological boundaries. Innovation must complement nature, not override it. The future belongs to systems that merge high-tech solutions with ancient ecological principles, balancing efficiency with sustainability. Take a slow breath here. Let the vastness of this technological landscape settle gently in your mind. From glowing vertical towers to intelligent fields, from gene-edited crops to microbe-powered fermenters, the future of agriculture is as much imagination as it is engineering. And yet, even with all these advancements, a central question remains. How do we feed billions of people in a way that honors the earth, protects biodiversity, and reduces environmental impact? One answer lies in one of the most transformative shifts underway, a reimagining of protein itself. As you breathe softly, let the story flow naturally forward. From farms and factories to laboratories and ecosystems, the next chapter explores a revolution that touches culture, climate, ethics, and the very nature of what we consider food. We now enter the era of the protein shift. The protein shift. Protein has always been at the heart of human nourishment. From the earliest days of hunting and foraging to the domestication of animals and the cultivation of legumes, societies have shaped their diets around the search for reliable protein sources. But today, in a world of nearly 8 billion people and growing, the old systems are reaching their ecological limits. Land, water, and climate pressure are converging, And the question is no longer whether we need new sources of protein, but how quickly we can build them. This moment marks a fundamental turning point, a reimagining, a shift. Imagine walking into a modern food innovation center. Stainless steel tanks hum gently, filled not with dairy from cows, but with yeast engineered to produce milk proteins. Nearby, a bioreactor nurtures cells that will become cultivated meat, real animal protein grown without raising, feeding, or slaughtering a single animal. In another room, stacks of trays support mycelium, the root-like network of fungi, growing rapidly into dense, fibrous structures that mimic the texture of chicken or steak. This is not science fiction. It is happening now. Cultivated meat, also known as lab-grown or cell-based meat, begins with a small sample of animal cells. These cells are placed in a nutrient-rich environment where they grow, multiply, and form tissues just as they would inside a living animal. No antibiotics, no overcrowded farms, no environmental footprint from raising livestock. The result is real meat structurally and nutritionally identical, produced with a fraction of the land, water, and emissions. The challenges remain: cost, scale, energy use. But progress is swift. Each breakthrough pushes the technology closer to viability. One day, cultivated meat may become as commonplace as plant-based milk is today. Then there is precision fermentation, a technology that uses microorganisms to produce specific proteins, fats, or flavor compounds. Microbes can be programmed to create casein and whey, the proteins that give cheese its stretch and milk its creaminess without cows. They can produce egg proteins, allowing bakers to make pastries and bread without chickens. They can produce heme, the molecule that makes meat taste like meat, unlocking flavors traditionally tied to animal agriculture. This approach is efficient, scalable, and exceptionally environmentally friendly. A single fermentation tank can produce the equivalent of hundreds of cows' worth of protein, using only water, sugar, and microbes. Mycelium-based proteins are another frontier. Fungi grow with astonishing speed, forming dense networks that naturally resemble the texture of meat. Companies around the world are cultivating mycelium to create steaks, fillets, and whole-cut alternatives that cook, tear, and flavor beautifully. Mycelium requires minimal resources, no sunlight, little water, and small footprints. It turns agricultural byproducts into nutritious, fiber-rich foods. Insects, long eaten in many cultures, represent another powerful solution. They require far less land and water than traditional livestock. They convert feed to protein with extraordinary efficiency. Crickets, mealworms, and black soldier fly larvae offer nutrient-rich, sustainable alternatives. For cultures unfamiliar with insect eating, companies are turning insects into powders, proteins, and flours that can seamlessly integrate into familiar foods. And of course, there are the familiar pillars of the plant-based revolution: beans, lentils, peas, soy, grains, nuts, and seeds. These ingredients have nourished humanity for millennia, but modern science has expanded their potential. Extrusion technologies create plant-based meats with convincing textures. Oils and flavorings replicate the richness of animal fats. Blends of pea protein, soy protein, and wheat gluten create a spectrum of products that reduce reliance on livestock. All these innovations share a common purpose: reducing the environmental burden of protein production. Livestock farming, for all its cultural and economic importance, contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, water use, and biodiversity loss. The protein shift aims not to eliminate tradition, but to expand possibilities, offering choices that lighten the load on the planet. But this shift is not only technological, it is cultural. Food traditions are deeply rooted in identity. Barbecue in the American South, sushi in Japan, kebabs in the Middle East, cheese in Europe. These dishes carry history, ritual, and emotion. For new forms of protein to succeed, they must respect these stories rather than replace them. They must integrate into cuisines, celebrate flavor, and offer experiences people truly want. And they must be accessible. To feed the world sustainably, alternative proteins cannot remain niche or expensive. They must become everyday options without sacrificing cultural meaning or culinary joy. Take a soft breath here. Feel how the world of protein is expanding, diversifying, reshaping the possibilities of nourishment. The protein shift is not the end of tradition, it is the beginning of a new chapter in human creativity. Yet even as technology evolves, one truth remains. Food is more than biology and engineering. It is a story of identity, heritage, and the emotional language of culture. With a calm exhale, we transition from the laboratories and innovation centers into the kitchens, markets, and tables where food becomes memory. We now explore cultural food identity and how tradition and innovation meet in the meals that shape who we are. Cultural food identity. Food is more than nourishment. It is memory, emotion, identity, and story. It carries the weight of ancestry, the warmth of childhood, the flavor of place, and the rhythm of tradition. Long before recipes were written, long before cuisine became a global tapestry, food served as a language, a way for people to express who they were, where they came from, and what they valued. Imagine stepping into a small kitchen filled with familiar scents. The aroma of spices warming in oil, the soft simmer of a stew passed down through generations, the comforting texture of bread rising slowly beneath a cloth. These moments linger in the mind long after they pass, woven into the fabric of identity. A single flavor can bring back an entire lifetime, a memory of a mother's hands, a festival celebrated long ago, a coastline where herbs grew wild and free. Every culture has foods that define its soul. Rice in East and Southeast Asia, bread in the Middle East and Europe, maize in the Americas, sorghum and teff across parts of Africa. These staples are more than ingredients. They connect landscapes to people, seasons to rituals, and history to the present. Spices tell stories of migration and trade. Chili peppers traveled from the Americas to Asia and Africa, becoming essential to cuisines that once never knew them. Cinnamon and cardamom crossed oceans, shaping desserts and medicines. Herbs reflect the terrain, rosemary growing wild in the Mediterranean, coriander brightening dishes across continents, turmeric and ginger enriching meals with color and warmth. And beyond ingredients, food shapes community. Meals gather families around a table. Festivals center around dishes prepared only once a year. Weddings, funerals, births, and milestones each carry foods symbolic of hope, continuity, or comfort. Through these rituals, food becomes a form of belonging. To share a meal is to share trust, welcome, and presence. This cultural richness is one of humanity's greatest achievements. But the modern world introduces new questions. Globalization has brought cuisines into conversation with one another. A city street might offer Japanese ramen, Italian pasta, Ethiopian injera, and Mexican tamales, all within a few blocks. This exchange cultivates creativity and connection. People experiment with flavors their ancestors never tasted. Chefs blend traditions, creating dishes that reflect a world increasingly woven together. Yet something else happens too. As global supply chains standardize ingredients, some local varieties fade. Climate change threatens crops that once defined regions. Modern lifestyles shrink the time spent cooking and gathering. Fast food convenient, uniform, predictable spreads across continents. The diversity of food cultures faces both expansion and erosion. In this moment of transformation, innovation must walk gently. New forms of protein, new farming technologies, new ingredients all promise sustainability. But they must integrate respectfully into cultural identities, not overwrite them. A plant-based shawarma must still speak the language of Levantine spices. A cultivated meat dumpling must still honor the tradition of folding, steaming, and sharing. A fermented dairy alternative must still evoke the comfort of cheese or yogurt. Tradition and innovation are not opposites. They are partners in the evolving story of food. Many communities are already blending the old with the new. Indigenous farmers incorporate regenerative principles aligned with their ancestral practices. Chefs revive heritage crops once lost to industrial agriculture. Families reinterpret classic dishes using sustainable ingredients while preserving the soul of the recipe. Food becomes a living narrative, adaptive, resilient, and creative. Take a slow breath here. Notice how food identity is both personal and universal. Everyone has a dish that feels like home, yet every culture's story contributes to the global human table. And within this diversity lies a deeper question, one that technology alone cannot answer. As we reimagine the future of food, how do we ensure that it is not only sustainable, but ethical? With a gentle exhale, we now step into the philosophical heart of this journey, where nourishment meets responsibility, and where the future of food becomes a reflection of our values. We now move into the ethics of future food. Ethics of future food. As the world transforms and new forms of nourishment emerge, the question of how we feed ourselves becomes more than a scientific challenge. It becomes a moral one. Every meal carries choices about the environment, about animals, about human labor, and about the systems we choose to support. The ethics of future food invites us to look closely at these choices and imagine a world where nourishment is guided not only by innovation, but by compassion, equity, and care. Imagine standing at a crossroads. One path follows the familiar history of farming as we have known it for thousands of years. The other leads into a landscape of possibilities reshaped by technology, climate pressures, and new understanding. Ethics is the quiet compass here, helping us decide which direction aligns with the future we hope to build. Begin with animal welfare. For most of human history, animals lived in close relationship with people. Herds grazed freely. Chickens and goats moved through villages. But industrialization created systems where animals became units of production. Crowded barns, limited movement, lifetimes spent in confinement. These systems produce immense quantities of food, but they also raise profound ethical questions about suffering, dignity, and responsibility. In the future of food, many people hope to reduce reliance on animal agriculture, not only for ecological reasons, but out of respect for living beings. Cultivated meat, fermentation-based dairy, and plant-based alternatives offer pathways that preserve flavor and nutrition while reducing harm. They invite us to consider a world where meat is enjoyed without taking life, where dairy is crafted without separation of calves and mothers, where eggs are made without cages or overcrowded farms. But ethics extends far beyond the treatment of animals. It includes the environmental footprint of our choices. Agriculture, especially livestock farming, shapes landscapes on a planetary scale. Forests cleared for pasture, water consumed for feed crops, emissions rising from methane and fertilizer, soil degraded under monocultures. To choose food is to choose an impact. The question is not whether we affect the earth, it is how gently, how respectfully, how intelligently we can do so. Sustainable farming, regenerative practices, and emerging technologies offer ways to lighten this footprint. But ethics requires honesty. Solutions must be evaluated not by promise alone, but by real-world outcomes. A practice that appears sustainable in one region might strain resources in another. A technology that reduces emissions today might consume too much energy tomorrow. Ethical futures demand humility, the willingness to adapt, revise, and listen to ecological limits. Then there is food equity. The future of food must not be a future for some. It must be a future for all. Around the world, millions face hunger, not because the planet lacks food, but because access, distribution, and affordability remain unequal. As innovations emerge, cultivated meat, climate-resilient crops, intelligent farms, there is a moral responsibility to ensure these technologies reach communities that need them most, not just those who can afford novelty. Equity also concerns farmers themselves. Small-scale farmers, indigenous communities, and rural societies are often the most vulnerable to climate change, economic shifts, and market pressures. Ethical food systems must protect their livelihoods, honor their knowledge, and offer pathways to prosperity, not displacement. This means fair markets, inclusive technology, community-led strategies, and respect for the cultural wisdom that has sustained landscapes for generations. Ethics also touches the labor and dignity of those who grow, pick, transport, and prepare our food. Migrant workers, farm laborers, and food industry employees often face harsh conditions and low wages. To build a fair food future, society must value the human hands behind every meal, ensuring safety, fair compensation, and respect. And finally, ethics includes personal responsibility. Every individual shapes the food system with each choice they make. Not perfectly, not always consistently, but meaningfully. Eating more plants, reducing waste, supporting sustainable producers, cooking mindfully. These small actions accumulate, becoming a quiet force of change. Ethics asks us to act with intention, not with guilt, but with awareness that we are part of a global community of eaters, farmers, and ecosystems. Take a gentle breath here. Ethics does not demand perfection. It asks for care. It asks for curiosity. It asks for kindness in decisions that ripple outward through soil, water, animals, and people. At this point in our journey, we've explored the physical foundations of food, the technological revolutions reshaping agriculture, and the cultural and moral landscapes in which we eat. But there is yet another layer, one that lives within the human body itself. Because food does more than sustain life, it shapes the mind. With a calm exhale, we now turn inward, exploring how nourishment influences emotion, cognition, memory, and the delicate balance of the brain. We now step into a chapter where biology meets psychology, the story of nutrition and the brain. Nutrition and the brain. Food is often described as fuel, but this is too simple, too mechanical. The truth is far more intimate. Every meal becomes part of the mind. Every bite participates in the chemistry of thought, the rhythm of emotion, the sharpness of focus, the softness of rest. The brain, this delicate electric organ, is shaped moment by what we eat. Imagine sitting quietly for a moment, feeling the breath move gently in and out. Within you, billions of neurons fire in subtle patterns. Networks form, dissolve, and reform. Memories flicker, emotions rise and settle. All of these processes require energy, micronutrients, and intricate biochemical support. Food is not external to these systems. It is woven directly into their function. The brain consumes a remarkable amount of energy, nearly a fifth of everything we take in, despite representing only a small fraction of our body's weight. It relies heavily on glucose, a simple sugar derived from carbohydrates, to fuel electrical activity. But while glucose powers the moment, the quality of nutrients shapes the long-term architecture of the mind. Consider essential fatty acids, especially omega-3s. These fats form the membranes of brain cells, influencing how signals travel and how efficiently neurons communicate. Diets rich in fish, nuts, seeds, and certain algae support flexibility, memory, and emotional stability. Diets lacking these nutrients can lead to inflammation, reduced cognitive clarity, and shifts in mood. Proteins, broken down into amino acids, become neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers that shape emotion and awareness. Serotonin, dopamine, GABA, each arises from the building blocks provided by the food we eat. A meal is not just nourishment, it is raw material for consciousness. Micronutrients play their part too. B vitamins support energy metabolism in the brain. Magnesium calms neural excitability. Zinc regulates signaling. Iron carries oxygen that keeps neurons alive and active. Even a slight deficiency in these elements can influence motivation, mood, or cognition. And then there is the gut, sometimes called the second brain. Stretching through the body is an intricate neural network known as the enteric nervous system, containing millions of neurons that communicate directly with the brain. The gut produces many of the neurotransmitters found in the mind. It houses trillions of microbes, the microbiome that digest food, regulate inflammation, and influence emotional well-being. This connection is known as the gut-brain axis, a two-way communication system where thoughts affect digestion and digestion affects thoughts. A meal rich in fiber and diverse plants feeds beneficial microbes, which in turn produce compounds that support calmness, clarity, and resilience. Diets built on ultra-processed foods disrupt this harmony, leading to inflammation and emotional instability. Taste also influences the brain beyond biology. It shapes comfort and memory. The scent of simmering tomatoes might remind someone of home. The sweetness of a certain dessert might recall a celebration. These associations are lodged in the limbic system, where emotion and memory intertwine. Food can sharpen the mind. It can soothe it. It can energize or slow it. A warm meal can calm a restless evening. A balanced breakfast can steady the start of a day. And over time, patterns of eating shape patterns of thinking. Still, nutrition and the brain are not only matters of individual choice. They are also shaped by culture, access, education, and environment. Not everyone can choose foods rich in nutrients. Many communities face economic barriers that shape diets. The ethics of nutrition, therefore, extend into policy, equity, and opportunity, reminding us again that food connects deeply to justice. But beyond biology and society, there is something poetic here. Food is one of the few things that touches the body at every level: cellular, physiological, emotional, and psychological. To nourish ourselves well is to support the mind in its fullest expression. Take a slow breath. Feel the way nourishment is not just a physical sensation, but a subtle clarity within. The future of food will bring new ingredients, new technologies, new possibilities. But the fundamental truth remains: food shapes who we are, inside and out. Now, with this understanding, we approach the horizon of our journey. Everything we have explored: ancient foraging, agricultural revolutions, taste, industry, climate, soil, biodiversity, sustainability, technology, protein innovation, culture, ethics, and neuroscience culminates in a single question: what will the future table look like? With a gentle exhale, we step forward into imagination grounded by science and guided by hope. We now enter the vision of the future table. The future table. Imagine a table 50 years from now. Not a futuristic fantasy, not a sterile laboratory surface, but a warm wooden table, familiar, textured, human. On it rests the food of a new era. Dishes shaped by innovation, tradition, ethics, ecology, and imagination. Meals that reflect not only where humanity has been, but where it chose to go. The future table is not defined by a single technology or trend. It is defined by diversity, resilience, and intention. It is shaped by local ecosystems, regional cultures, global collaboration, and the quiet intelligence of nature itself. Begin with the farms that supply this table. Some are vertical towers rising inside cities, glowing with soft LED light. Here, leafy greens, herbs, fruits, and vegetables grow in stacked layers, pesticide-free, water-efficient, and resilient to climate shocks. These farms feed people in dense urban centers, reducing the distance between harvest and plate to mere minutes. Others are regenerative fields, breathing with life, soil rich with microbial communities, trees interwoven with crops, livestock rotating across grasses in ways that mimic ancient migrations. These farms restore ecosystems, increase biodiversity, and draw carbon back into the ground. They blend traditional wisdom with scientific understanding, proving that healing the land can also feed humanity abundantly. Then there are the oceans, managed responsibly, protected from overfishing, and enhanced by sustainable aquaculture systems that respect marine ecosystems. Shellfish farms purify water. Seaweed forests capture carbon. Fish populations recover as conservation becomes standard, not optional. Alongside these, new landscapes emerge. Biofabrication facilities, where microbes craft proteins identical to those found in milk, eggs, and meat without requiring animals. Fermentation tanks producing nutrient-rich bases used in everything from baking to baby formula. Mycelium farms where fungal networks grow into structures that resemble whole cuts of meat, rich in fiber and deeply sustainable. These are not replacements for traditional foods. They are additions, expanding options, reducing pressure on ecosystems, and offering alternatives where resources are limited or fragile. On the future table itself, meals reflect these evolving systems. A dish of roasted vegetables grown in regenerative soil, infused with flavors shaped by microbial richness. A protein centerpiece crafted from mycelium or cultivated cells, seasoned with herbs native to the local climate. A bowl of grains that thrive despite shifting weather, drought-tolerant millet, nutrient-dense sorghum, climate-resilient rice. A fermented dairy alternative that tastes astonishingly close to traditional cheese, made without the heavy ecological footprint. There are still familiar ingredients too. Heritage varieties preserved through seed banks and community gardens. Fresh produce grown by small farmers, supported by fair markets. Seafood harvested from carefully managed ecosystems. Bread made from grains milled in ways that preserve nutrition and flavor. The future is not a rejection of the past, it is an evolution of it. Around this table sit people from every generation. Children who grow up understanding where their food comes from, not through lectures, but through experience. Elders who see their traditions honored and adapted in new, thoughtful ways. Farmers, chefs, scientists, and community members all participating in shaping a food landscape that is sustainable, equitable, and delicious. Technology quietly supports everything. Sensors guide water use. AI models predict crop cycles. Renewable energy powers vertical farms and fermentation systems. Climate-smart tools help farmers respond to weather shifts with precision. But technology does not overshadow nature. It collaborates with it. Food waste, once a global burden, shrinks as smart systems redirect surplus to where it's needed most. Compost loops close the cycle, returning nutrients to soil. Biodegradable packaging replaces plastics. Leftovers become ingredients for tomorrow instead of landfill. Culture also thrives. Cuisines continue to evolve. Old recipes are rediscovered. New traditions emerge. Families teach children how to cook with both ancient ingredients and modern innovations. Restaurants celebrate regional flavors while reimagining dishes for a changing world. Food becomes a way of honoring both heritage and progress. But the future table is not only about technology, ecology, or cuisine. It is about mindset. A shift from extraction to regeneration. From convenience to connection. From excess to balance. From individual consumption to collective responsibility. Take a slow breath here. Imagine the quiet around that future table, the sense of care embedded in each choice, each ingredient, each story woven into a meal. The future of food is not a distant dream. It is a path we begin shaping today, one small choice at a time. And now, as our journey reaches its final moments, we return to the heart of this exploration, a reflection on what it means to feed ourselves wisely, compassionately, and consciously. With a gentle exhale, we move to the closing reflection, bringing our 4-hour journey to a calm and thoughtful close. Here begins the final chapter. Closing reflection. Food is one of the most intimate relationships we have with the earth. It is a story that begins long before us and continues long after. A story written in soil and sunlight, in rivers and roots, in seasons and migrations, in memory and imagination. Tonight, we walked through that story from the first foragers on ancient plains to the technological horizons of tomorrow. And through every chapter, one truth remained constant. Food is life, connection, and meaning. As humanity steps into the future, we stand not at an ending, but at a beginning. The choices we make now, how we grow, how we share, how we nourish will echo across generations. They will shape the resilience of ecosystems, the stability of societies, and the well-being of every living being who calls this planet home. Take a soft breath here. Let the entire journey settle gently in your awareness. We began with early humans, wandering landscapes guided only by instinct and curiosity. They listened to the land, paid attention to its signs, and discovered nourishment through presence and patience. That ancient connection still lives within us, waiting to be remembered. We moved into the agricultural revolution, where seeds planted in fertile soil reshaped consciousness, community, and civilization. We learned that to cultivate the earth is also to cultivate ourselves, our patience, our imagination, our sense of time. We explored taste and the brain, the quiet science behind why food comforts, inspires, and connects us to memory. We witnessed industrialization, globalization, and the immense power and responsibility that come with abundance. We stepped into climate change, soil, water, and biodiversity, seeing clearly how the foundations of life are shifting and how urgently they need our care. We learned from sustainable farming that nature is not a machine to be optimized, but a teacher to be honored. We walked through technological innovation, discovering how vertical farms, intelligent fields, biotechnology, and microbial engineering offer tools for a resilient future. We explored the protein shift and the ways we might nourish ourselves with less harm and greater creativity. We honored culture, the stories, rituals, and identities carried in each meal, and recognized that tradition and innovation can coexist, enriching one another. We reflected on ethics, understanding that food is a moral landscape touching animals, ecosystems, economies, and people. And finally, we arrived at the future table, a vision both hopeful and grounded, where sustainability and abundance are not opposites, where technology and tradition collaborate, where communities thrive through balance and care. As the journey comes to a close, imagine once more that wooden table of the future. Imagine setting your hands gently upon it. Imagine the quiet hum of a sustainable world, fields alive with biodiversity, oceans recovering, cities growing their own food, families cooking meals that honor both heritage and innovation. This future is not guaranteed, but it is possible, and its origins begin with awareness, intention, and compassion. The future of food is not simply about what we will eat, it is about who we will become. A species that listens again. A species that collaborates with the earth rather than conquers it. A species that nourishes rather than depletes. A species that remembers that every grain, every leaf, every bite is a gift. Take one last slow breath. Feel the fullness of this journey, a story of past and future, of science and spirit, of challenge and hope. May you carry this awareness with you gently, like a seed. May it take root in your thoughts, your choices, and your conversations. And may the story of food continue to unfold in ways that sustain not only our bodies, but our connection to the living world. This is the future of food. Sustainable, innovative, human.